My talk is about expanding our horizons, looking into the options available to treat chronic lateral patellar instability, from now on called CLPI. What this talk is not about is negating any other existing paradigm. So, open your mind and let's begin by asking a question. What factors are responsible for instability in our patient? This is the key question when we are going to indicate surgery for a patient with CLPI. The answer is that CLPI is the result of a failure of patellar restraints, as well as an increment of the lateral vector of the quadriceps. Currently, no one doubts that the major stabilizer of the patella in the first 30 degrees of knee flexion is the MPFL. Moreover, beyond 30 degrees of knee flexion, stability mainly depends on the bony anatomy. And currently, no one doubts that the most important anatomic risk factor for CLPI is trochlear dysplasia. However, what is now emerging more and more strongly is the importance of torsional abnormalities, especially femoral maltorsion, in the genesis of disabling CLPI. Kaiser and colleagues have demonstrated that 20 degrees of femoral anteversion above the normal value is a significant risk factor for patellar instability in a patient with an intact MPFL. However, in a patient with a deficient MPFL, 10 degrees is a significant risk factor for chronic lateral patellar instability. Moreover, another factor that is implicated in the genesis of disabling CLPA is valgus malalignment. Wilson and colleagues have shown good results up to 80% after isolated varus distal femoral osteotomy in patients with CLPI. This clinical case highlights the importance of both factors, valgus malalignment and femoral anteversion, pathological femoral anteversion, in the genesis of CLPI. This is the case of a patient operated on both knees performing a bilateral MPFL reconstruction. The patient came to my office to find a solution for the left knee. The right one was not in good condition, but he said that he could live with it. In the left knee, you can observe an obvious valgus malalignment, and there is, moreover, a femoral anteversion of 43 degrees according to the Murphy's method. You can observe a bilateral and symmetric J sign. In this case, I perform a biplanar supracondylar osteotomy, and you can observe how the patella is well centered after biplanar osteotomy. Moreover, the J sign has disappeared. To sum up, patellofemoral instability depends of bony geometry, trochlear geometry, and ligaments balance. It's only when the lateral vector of the quadriceps overcomes the restraints when dislocation occurs. That is, the dislocation is produced by the lateral vector of the quadriceps. The lateral vector of the quadriceps is influenced by several factors, TTTG, knee valgus, femoral anteversion. Of all of them, the most important one is femoral anteversion. For example, if a patient has a femoral anteversion of 30 degrees above the normal value, the femoral anteversion, the valgus vector will increase more than 120%. Changing the limb alignment by means of osteotomy is the most powerful treatment available for treating CLPI in patients with skeletal malalignment. The quadriceps vector is responsible for the force acting on the patella. Osteotomy will change the quadriceps direction and therefore the force acting on the patella. If we operate on an MPFL without changing the responsible for MPFL deficiency, we obtain bad results. It has been demonstrated that there is a correlation between trochlear dysplasia and femoral anteversion. Moreover, it has been seen that the more severe the dysplasia, the greater the degree of femoral anteversion. This is where the question appears. Is trochlear dysplasia the problem, or is it torsional abnormality? There is a significant correlation between trochlear dysplasia and distal femoral anteversion, but not between trochlear dysplasia and proximal anteversion. Therefore, in patients with CLPI and trochlear dysplasia and femoral anteversion, the femoral anteversion should be corrected by performing a supracondylar osteotomy, because the origin of the femoral anteversion is distal. Now I'd like you to think about the following. There is a paper, an interesting paper, published by Khan and colleagues that provokes in an experimental model trochlear dysplasia performing the rotational osteotomies of the femur. In this clinical case, you can observe the case of a patient who came to my office due to severe trochlear dysplasia. This patient began with patellar instability after femoral lengthening, and you can observe a femoral retroversion of 17 degrees and a severe trochlear dysplasia. Patients with CLPI and trochlear dysplasia have a high risk for torsional deformities and valgus deviation. So in these patients, it is mandatory to perform an AP weight-bearing full-leg radiograph as well as a torsional assessment. Increased femoral anteversion along with a high grade of J sign is associated with isolated MPFL reconstruction failure. Moreover, it has been shown that patients with femoral anteversion greater than 30 degrees have inferior post-op clinical outcomes and a higher rate of residual J sign after MPFL reconstruction associated with TTO. So, we must consider in these patients the rotational femoral osteotomy. CLPO beyond 30 degrees associated with a positive J sign is indicative of the presence of severe trochlear dysplasia and or pathological femoral anteversion and a deficient MPFL. In these patients, an isolated MPFL reconstruction is not enough to achieve good clinical results. In these patients, we must perform as the first step the correction of the J sign in order to neutralize the lateral vector of the quadriceps by means of rotational osteotomy and or trochleoplastia. In a second step, we perform an MPFL reconstruction. Don't ever use MPFL reconstruction to pull the patella medially. Finally, I'd like to show a case to highlight the importance of tibial maltorsion in the genesis and treatment of MPFL, of patellar instability. This is the case of an 18-year-old female, elite swimmer, with a single episode of lateral patellar dislocation and severe patellofemoral pain daily. In this case, I perform infratuberosity, the rotational tibial osteotomy associated with an MPFL reconstruction. The style that this patient couldn't perform was the breaststroke style. During breaststroke style, the knee valgus and external rotation of the tibia are greatly forced, and you must And you must consider that the valgus malalignment in an MPFL deficient knee will provoke a lateral displacement of the patella. Moreover, external tibial torsion will provoke an increment of the lateral quadriceps vector that will increase the pull on the MPFL. Moreover, external tibial torsion will provoke an increment of the lateral patellofemoral joint compression forces, and this will provoke an increment of the anterior knee pain or patellofemoral pain. In conclusion, trochlear dysplasia is the main anatomic risk factor for CLPI. I only consider a deepening trochleoplasty when all the following are present: a positive J sign, a 5 mm bust, and a convex proximal trochlea. A pathological femoral anteversion as well as an excessive external tibial torsion have been correlated with CLPI. In these cases, we must consider the rotational osteotomy in order to correct patellar instability. And finally, in patients with genu valgum and CLPI, we must consider an osteotomy of the distal femur and or tibia in order to treat genu valgum. Thank you very much for your attention.